Hey everyone, let's look at the third problem in section 4.3 on Newton's method. We are going to apply Newton's method to a function f of x with a given initial guess x sub 0 and calculate basically the first three iterations x1, x sub 1, x sub 2, x sub 3. So here's our function, it's cosine of x minus 2x, and here's our initial guess x sub 0 equals 1. And then you're going to give your answer to 6 decimal places, so be real careful with rounding off intermediate results. In other words, don't do that. As I showed you in class, you want to use your calculator to help, and I'll do it the same way that I did it in class. So recall Newton's method. This will be given on the test. You'll have this to use. So to find the next iteration, we take the x sub 1 n would be equal to 0 in this case, right? X sub 1 would be x sub 0 minus f of x sub 0 divided by f prime of x sub 0. So we do need to know f prime. So what's the derivative of cosine? That's negative sine of x. And what's the derivative of negative 2x? That's negative 2. Okay, so now I'll just find the first guess x sub 1, first iteration here. It's x sub 0, as we said, minus f of x sub 0 over f prime of x sub 0. So x sub 0 is 1 minus f of x sub 0. So f of 1 would be cosine of 1 minus 2 times 1. And then f prime of 1 in the denominator will be negative sine of 1 minus 2. Okay. And of course, I've given the answer there. So how in the world did I get that? So let me show you what I'm going to do with the calculation. In the calculator, I'm going to start with my initial guess. I'm just going to type in 1 and hit enter. And remember what that does, that stores that into a variable called answer. So I'm going to write this out, but everywhere you see an arrow pointing to the 1, instead of writing 1, I'm going to use the answer button. Remember, answer is at the bottom of the calculator, most of them right there above the negative key. And so I do second answer, right? Minus, and then I need to put in parentheses the evaluation of the function f, right, at answer. And so, by the way, a quick check, we're doing the trig function, so you should check your mode here and make sure you are in radian mode. If you're in degree mode, you're going to get an incorrect result. So make sure that you are in radian mode. So I'm going to be doing cosine of 1, but instead of 1, remember, I'm going to do answer again. And instead of negative 2 times 1, I'm going to do negative 2 times answer. So there's the evaluation at the function, rather, cosine of x minus 2 times x, where x is the answer, right? The x sub 0. Divided by, and then I need to have the denominator in parentheses. This will be negative, and be careful with negative. Don't use the minus sign, use the little negative here. Minus sign is only when you have two numbers in between two numbers. So negative sine of 1, but again, we're going to do answer, and then minus 2. Close the parentheses. Okay, so a lot going on there. You want to make sure, you've got parentheses around the denominator, parentheses around the numerator, and again, replacing x sub 0 with answer. But since x sub 0 is 1 and 1 is now stored in answer, this will basically do this calculation for us, and we should be getting this. Let's see when I hit enter. To 6 decimal places, 486,288. The 7th decimal is 0, so I leave this 6 decimal at 8. So there's the first result. Now, what's x sub 2 going to be? Well, it's going to be x sub 1 minus f of x sub 1 over f prime of x sub 1. So how do I do that? Well, notice x sub 1 is this value, unrounded. So I don't want to use this rounded value. I want to use the unrounded value in the calculator. And so all I need to do is hit second entry, right? Entry again is down here above the enter key, second, and I get entry. It just recopies what I just wrote. But what I just wrote now is going to have, instead of 1 in for answer, it will now have this value, x sub 1 in for answer. So it's replacing x sub 1 in all these spaces. And so if I hit enter, I'm going to get x sub 2. Now be careful here. So 450, 418, and then the next thing is a 6. So that's going to force me to round that 8 up to a 9. Okay, and then x sub 3 will be x sub 2 minus f of x sub 2 over f prime of x sub 2. So again, I just hit second entry. Now answer is this value, which is x sub 2. It goes into all those correct positions, and I get x sub 3. And again, be careful here, 45018, and this 3 will get rounded up to a 4 because the next digit is 5 or more. Okay, so again, be careful with the calculations on these, but use the calculator to help evaluate these estimates in Newton's method. Hope this helps.